Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are so grateful to be able to welcome you into our sanctuary, even if you aren't physically here. But we hope that through your screen, you'll be able to let the spirit of Shabbat come through into your home in whatever space you happen to be praying. And together, we know that our prayerful noise will rise up and be heard.
And our opening song, like I said, is Lechu Neranenah, Go Forth Singing. Please join in with me. Lechu Neranenah, Yai, 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 L'Adonai, Yai, 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 Nariah, Yai, 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 Letzur Yishenu, Yai, 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 Yai. Let us sing out to God, the maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear our song. Lechu Neranenah, Yai, 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 L'Adonai, Yai, 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 Nariah, Yai, 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 Litzur Yishenu, Yai, 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 Yai. For all of the wonder in all of God's light, we rejoice. So now let us listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lechu Neranenah, Yai, 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 L'Adonai, Yai, 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 Nariah, Yai, 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 Litzur Yishenu, Yai, 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 Yai. And now we're going to open our Shabbat service and welcome in our Shabbat with lighting the candles and having our sanctifying the Kiddush wine. So this is a great time for all of you to go and grab your Shabbat candles. They can be any candles. You can even have one. 2 is great. But if you only have one, you only have one, and that's fine. So get your Shabbat candles. And also, if you'd grab a cup for the sanctification of the Kiddush, which we will do immediately following. So we light our Shabbat candles, and we're going to wave our hands over the lights 3 times as we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu we will take our cup of Kiddush wine and you're going to raise it up like so. Pretend I'm still holding it because my third arm isn't working today. And we will say the blessing over our Kiddush wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki vanu b'chata v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'v'ratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. We rise now, if you are comfortable and able, for Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. Le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. And you may be seated. Please join together with me now as we chant Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot ayadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha u'chtavtam amzuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti echem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihyot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'edav hakodesh, nora tehilot osei peleh. Nora tehilot osei peleh. Malchutecha u'banecha, חוקי היום לפני משה ומירים. זה ליאנו ואמרו, זה ליאנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי בדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini ubein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam.
Rise now for the Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yadi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imavot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah rav lehoshia. Morid hatah, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, u'matir asurim, u'mekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot, u'mido melach, melech memit u'mechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We are seated. It was taught that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, "The world is maintained by three things: by justice, by truth, and by peace." Rav Muna said, "These three are actually one. If justice is present, then truth is present, and this makes peace." And all three are found in the same verse, as it is written, "Judge with the justice of truth and peace within your gates. Wherever there is justice, there will be peace, and wherever there is peace, there is justice."
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Nasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Nasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon, lecha shalom. Ki atahu melech Adon, lecha shalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Etov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim
At this time in our service, we think of those who lie on beds of pain, those in need of healing of mind, body, or spirit. We also think of those who take care of those people in need. If you have the name of someone you're thinking of at this time, someone in need of healing, feel free to say their name now, either aloud where you are or in your heart. take this moment of silence, perhaps one of the first quiet moments you've had all week, to say our own silent prayer, either from the words on the pages you may be looking at, or simply the prayer that your spirit is yearning to let out.
Adonai tzuri vegoali, Adonai tzuri vegoali, my God, my rock and my redeemer. Adonai tzuri vegoali. My heart opens for you. My lips, they pray to you. Please, please shine through. Yehiyu ratzon imrei fi. Yehiyu ratzon imrei fi. Ve'yon libi lefanecha. Yehiyu ratzon imrei fi. My heart opens for you. My lips, they pray to you. Please, please shine through. Yehiyu ratzon imrei fi. Yehiyu ratzon imrei fi. Ve'yon libi lefanecha. Yehiyu ratzon imrei fi.
On August 7th, this past Friday, the Jewish people lost a giant, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz. He was one of the giants on whose shoulders our people stand. Walter Reich, a professor at George Washington University, argues that he was among the greatest and most consequential scholars of the past 1,000 years of the Jewish people, putting him in the same league as Rashi, Maimonides, and Joseph Caro, the preeminent Jewish thinkers of the Middle Ages. Born in Jerusalem in 1937, Adin Steinsaltz grew up in a home that worshipped the great secular scholars of the time, Karl Marx, and Sigmund Freud. But when his father hired a tutor in Talmud, an entire world was opened up to the young Adin. And it became clear that his intellect matched his insatiable hunger for knowledge. In his teenage years, he became a follower of Chabad Hasidism, one of the ultra-Orthodox Jewish movements. He studied Jewish text at a yeshiva alongside his studies of math and the hard sciences at Hebrew University. Rabbi Steinsaltz has written many books on nearly every subject in the Jewish world, but in 1965 he began the work for which he has been recognized most widely, a complete translation of the Babylonian Talmud into modern Hebrew. Over the next 45 years, he created a Talmud that was more accessible than the text had ever been, with punctuation, paragraph breaks, illustrations, and his own commentary alongside the text. This was perhaps the most ambitious effort in Jewish scholarship since Rashi's own commentary on the Talmud in the 11th century. Indeed, Steinsaltz's Talmud has since been translated into Russian, French, Spanish, and in English as the Koren edition, which I highly recommend. Steinsaltz's motto was a clever play on Moses' demand on Pharaoh, "Let my people know." Rabbi Steinsaltz was devoted to carving a path towards Judaism's most precious and nearly impenetrable treasures. But what is this treasure, this Talmud, to which Adin Steinsaltz devoted more than half of his life? What makes it worth his time and our time? Let me explain. The Babylonian Talmud, named for its origins among the Babylonian Jewish community, is a body of work made up of the Mishnah, an earlier Jewish law code and compilation, and the Gemara, a later commentary on the Mishnah. Its editorial process is believed to have been completed in the 7th century, just before the Muslim conquest of Babylonia. It is comprised of 63 topical sections, which we call tractates. It has 2,711 double-sided pages and 1.8 million words, placing it among the longest works in the history of human writing. Each tractate records the discussion of a particular issue, such as how and when to say blessings, laws concerning damages or divorce, and so on, presented as a debate among different rabbis, each putting forth their own arguments. These rabbis, in actuality, lived hundreds of years apart from one another, but the text is constructed so as to create a narrative legal discourse. Talmudic discussion is often dry and technical, but occasionally vibrant and hilarious. Take, for example, the absurd discourses of Rabbi Meir, who was so good at arguing that he could prove the kosher unkosher and the unkosher kosher. The Talmud refers to his argumentative style as charif, or spicy, which I love so much. Take that, alongside numerous puns, fables about mythical creatures, and way too many stories about bodily functions, and you have a good time on your hands. The Talmud truly contains everything. Scholars refer to it as the sea, both for its fathomless depths and the fact that every source of Jewish tradition flows into it and from it. Rabbi Steinsaltz understood that both the content and structure of the Talmud had a great deal to teach us as a Jewish people. That's why he made it his life's mission to make the Talmud accessible to as many people as possible. I'd like to share a few of those lessons for us on this Shabbat. The first one is that we should always encourage diversity of opinion. For a so-called legal text, the Talmud actually makes very few rulings, but it preserves every legal opinion. The students of Hillel and Shammai, both first-century rabbis, never agreed. But the school of Hillel always won out, even to the point that the Talmud records a divine voice declaring that Hillel always won out. But the opinion of Shammai's camp is always in the text, right alongside Hillel's. What does this teach us? That the outcome of a discussion is less important than the discussion itself. And the more people that participate, the more the discussion is enriched. The Talmud wants us to disagree with each other, and in fact obligates us to engage with those whose opinions differ as we defend our beliefs in good faith. The outcome of machloket l'shem shamayim, argument for the sake of heaven, will approach the truth. The next lesson I get out of the Talmud is that details are important. For the rabbis, everything was of significance. They spent a lot of ink on every possible scenario that a given law might need to address. This is how you end up with the question of which head a two-headed person should wear their tefillin on. Had the rabbis ever met a two-headed person? Probably not. But they had to know what Jewish law would say about it. For the rabbis, the process of determining the law was not just about keeping society running. It was about uncovering another Torah delivered to Moses at Mount Sinai by God, which the rabbis called the oral Torah. Thus, the decisions they came to were seen to be God's will. Every decision mattered and even had a cosmic impact. People have often said, don't sweat the small stuff, but I think this pandemic that we're living through is teaching us what the rabbis already knew. The small things matter, and the details of life that didn't seem important before are suddenly apparent. We took the normal routines in our daily lives for granted, but now, even sitting across from another person, seeing someone's face can give us real satisfaction. The Talmud tells us to cherish the daily miracles we experience. Finally, the Talmud can tell us what it means to be a Jew in the modern world. In more traditional circles, the Talmud might be a blunt tool of enforcing law as much it is an object of study. But Rabbi Steinsaltz enabled us to see the Talmud as a model for an evolving Judaism, even though he would disagree with what we as Reformed Jews choose to do. The Talmud presents us with centuries of rabbis in dialogue with each other in their rapidly changing Jewish world. With the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, they had to decide what Judaism would look like going forward. The Torah was clearly intended as a set of laws for Jews living in the biblical land of Israel. The Babylonian Talmud, born out of the diaspora, took the Judaism of the Torah and made it work for any Jew anywhere. As Reformed Jews, we acknowledge that the world changes and that Judaism needs to change with it. The rabbis explained their reforming of Judaism with the concept of oral Torah, so that everything they came up with could have been given to Moses at Sinai. We no longer need that justification, but we can learn from their passion and their scholarship. So I encourage each of us to take a look at the Talmud, to give it a shot. We don't have to commit to studying it every day, but we should see it as a part of our tradition. The Talmud and everything in it belongs to us. We can find sparks of divine inspiration in the Talmud. words that speak to us and elevate us in the ways that only Jewish wisdom can. This is the wisdom that Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz found in this strange and wonderful book, the Talmud. This is the wisdom that we can learn when we take the time to search its pages with passion and curiosity. Shabbat Shalom. As always, we come now to our time for announcements. Tomorrow morning, also as always, at 9:15, we have Torah study. It's Parshat Re'eh. This is a good one, people. At 1 o'clock tomorrow morning, we have our 20s and 30s shabrunch. Next Thursday, which I believe is August 20th, that sounds right to me, at 10 a.m., we have Cantor's Adult Hebrew Reading Practice. If you are comfortable with reading the Hebrew letters and vowels, if you want to get a little more practice in, maybe if you've already taken a class with her, it's a great time to keep your Hebrew fresh and polished. And then that same Thursday, at 11:30 a.m., we have the senior luncheon at home, I am told with Frank Sinatra. There are a couple reasons why that would be a problem, but if it isn't Frank Sinatra, I hear it's a very convincing impersonator. That is at 11:30. Any of these, the Zoom links you need for these can be found on the Temple website in the CSC at Home section. And of course, we will be here next week because Shabbat comes every week. And we rise for Aleinu as we begin to conclude our service.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, lat'ed gedula le'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, ve'goralenu kecho hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Our thoughts turn to, you may be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think at this time of those giants on whose shoulders we stood, those who have died in recent days and at this time in years past. If you have a name that you are thinking of this time, feel free to say it aloud or in your heart. Share the names of those who have been recently laid to rest: Erwin Rovner, Sheila Shear, Jordan Rosenberg, Elizabeth Berman Swede, Edward Epstein, Nancy Miller, Heidi Polsky, David Levine, and Billy Mills. We think of those soon to be laid to rest: Florence Mandelbaum, Karen Holmes, and Edward Stein. We also think of those who have died at this time in years past: Elizabeth R. Alden, John H. Alden, Isla Baker, Murray M. Beck, Heyman Berkman, Donald Martin Berkowitz, Betty Miller Blufeld, Herbert Breslow, Pasha Brodkin, Lillian Brock, Gussie R. Cherry, Charlene R. Cordona, Neil Crystal, Albert Dubler, Sam F. Edelstein, Ben Elstein, Anna Epstein, Lenore Fellman, Fred Firestone, Arlen Sigmund Freeman, Herbert Friedman, Ralph Friedman, Esther Gendelman, Herbert Ira Goldberg, Milton Goldman, Stephen Grupp, Phyllis Hall, Rose Kaplan Harris, Anna Haubenstock, Pearl Hess, Max Israelson, Miriam Koppel, Emily Landis, Jean Lasday, Margaret Leiston, Gertrude Lotman, Nathan Lutz, Jacob Markowitz, David E. Mensch, Michael O'Brien, Betty Pat, Saul L. Rachelson, Nathan Reif, Maynard Robinson, Edward Michael Rosenblatt, Eleanor Rosenthal, Norman Rosenthal, Jack Ross, Mary Miriam Saunders, Ava Schwartzbach, Jacob Seinfeld, Michael Adam Simonoff, Jean Smiles, Stanley Smith, Abraham Snyder, Lee Stafflin, Paul Sullivan, Donna Francine Gratz Tisdale, Alexander Sasha Unrod, Samuel Wagner, and Jean K. Whitman. For those names and all those names said and unsaid, we rise now for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divarach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say together, Amen.
Amen. And our closing song is Adon Olam. Rabbi, I have to say that was the most concise and understandable explanation of the Talmud I think I've ever heard. I actually understood a lot, more than I usually do.
Well, I learned a lot from Rabbi Steinsaltz.
I'm telling you, it was wonderful. Thank you. So if you haven't had a chance to look at Talmud, everybody, this might be a really good time to join in with some study.
It's all on Sefaria.
Yeah. You should teach a class on Talmud. I think that would be great.
We'll look into it.
Anyway, we're going to sing Adon Olam. Please join along in singing with us. Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
Le'et Nasa,
Le'et Natzah,
V'chepso
V'chepso
Kol,
Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam,
Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Hoveh, Ve'hu Yiyeh B'tifara Adon Olam, Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
Le'et Natzah,
V'chepso
Kol,
Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam,
Ve'hu Echad Ve'ein Sheni,
Lahamshil Lo Lehachbira Adon Olam,
Ve'li Reshit, Ve'li Tachlit,
Ve'lo Ha'oz V'Hamisra Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
Le'et Natzah,
Le'et Natzah,
V'chepso
V'chepso Kol,
Azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam. And I'm sure that they have some challah somewhere at home getting ready for your dinner. So let's all sing it together. Rabbi, ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Te'avon, Shabbat Shalom. You all have a Shabbat filled with rest and love.
Shabbat shalom.